Good morning, students. I am Professor Sonali Saste. In today's lecture of GE 203, that is Principles of Plant Biotechnology, we are going to learn about protoplast isolation, culture, fusion, and the term somatic hybridization. So let us first know about what is protoplast. So protoplast is a part of plant cell which lies within the cell wall and can be plasmolized and isolated by removing the cell wall by mechanical or enzymatic procedures. So basically in a simple language, protoplast is nothing but plant cell without cell wall or the cell from which the cell wall has been removed. So it's just a cell with a cell membrane. Now, scientists who contributed in protoplast isolation culture were Klecker and E.C. Cocking. The plant protoplasts were first isolated by Klecker et al. In 1892 from onion bulb scales plasmolized in hypertonic solution. Then after Klecker's invention, it was in 1960 when E.C. Cocking demonstrated the isolation of intact protoplasts by use of cell wall degrading enzymes, cellulase and hemicellulase, which were prepared from fungus Myrothecum verrucaria. So, when we peep up in the history of protoplast isolation, there are two scientists, Klecker and E.C. Cocking. Klecker have devised the mechanical isolation of protoplast isolation method, and E.C. Cocking have invented the method of enzymatic isolation of protoplasts. Now, why these protoplasts are important? The isolation, culture, and fusion of protoplasts are one of the most fascinating fields of research. The techniques are important for the following reason. The first reason being to develop the novel hybrid plants through protoplast fusion, then genetic engineering to synthesize a plant of desired characteristic. This will help in crop improvement by somatic hybridization and cell modification, and the protoplast in culture can be regenerated into an entire plant. So majorly why one should go for protoplast culture is to obtain the somatic hybrids, to develop the novel hybrid plant, because in protoplast fusion technology we fuse the two different protoplasts together to obtain a somatic hybrid. So that's why in the crop improvement program this is very much important to obtain the novel hybrids and go for cell modification, go for genetic engineering for synthesizing the plants of our desired characteristics. Everyone knows about the structure of plant cell. So whatever green material is there outside, which is a woven structure of cellulose and hemicellulose fibers, this structure of cell wall can be degraded using the enzymes, or when we plasmolize the cell, the interior membrane along with the cell, it shrinks towards the center and thereby making a space between the cell membrane and cell wall, and one can easily turn apart the cell wall using the small knife under the microscope, and you can remove the cell wall mechanically also. Now for protoplast isolation, what we need plant cells. Then we need the enzymes like cellulase and pectinase. These cells were first plasmolized. That means we have to keep these cells in a hypertonic solution, the solution which has high salt concentration, so that the water from the cells will come out. The cell along with its membrane will shrink towards the center, and then it is easy to treat these cells with the enzymes. So as enzymes will degrade the cell wall, degrade the pectinase material in between the two cells, and your protoplast can be removed or it will release out of the cell and attain a round shape. So as I have told you that for making the cell plasmolized, we first need a hypotonic solution. Then in the mechanical cutting, what we have to do, we have to add it into a pectinase cellulase enzyme solution. Then your protoplast along with plasma membrane will release out of the cell. The production of protoplast by mechanical and enzyme treatments. Enzymes are depicted above the arrow, that is pectinase and cellulase. In mechanical cutting, you just have to give a cut under the microscope. Now, types of isolation of protoplast, as I have told you, that there are two methods. One is a mechanical method and another is a enzymatic method. First, we will see about mechanical method. It is used for vacuolated cells like onion bulb scale, then radish and beetroot tissue. It yields low number of protoplast, laborious and tedious as it involves the observation under microscope and very fine work under microscope with the help of mini scalpel. And also whatever protoplast will be yielded, they have a low viability. That means they are not viable or they are viable in low number. So methodology of mechanical isolation of protoplast is, first you need plant tissue. You have to carry out the lysis, plasmolysis. Plasmolysis is nothing but keeping the cells in a hypertonic solution. Then once your cells are plasmolysed, you need to observe them under microscope. Under microscope, then these plasmolysed cells will have cell membrane which is having the space between the cell membrane and cell wall. So it is easy to cut the cell wall with the knife, small knife. And once you mechanically break the cell wall, the inside protoplast will be released, and then finally you can collect the protoplast. So which cells or plant material is suitable for isolating the protoplast using mechanical method? So mainly the cells like leaf mesophils cells, then cultured cell suspension cells, then seedling cotyledons, seedling roots or flower petals. So all these tissues are very delicate. So using these plant material will help us in getting the more number of protoplast using mechanical method. So these are the intact cells. Once we plasmolyze them, that means when we add them in a plasmolytic solution, the solution with high salt concentration, they will generally shrink at the center. Okay, cells will shrink at the center, creating a space between plasma membrane and cell wall. Then these cells are observed under the microscope. Under microscope, you just give the cuts at the cell wall, and your protoplast will get released, and these protoplasts were then collected. So this is a mechanical method of protoplast isolation. Now in enzymatic method of protoplast isolation, this is generally used for variety of tissues and organs including leaves, petioles, fruits, roots, coleoptiles, hypocotyle, stem, shoot apices, embryo, microspores. Mesophyll tissue, most suitable source for obtaining the protoplast. It generally yields high yield of protoplast, then easy to perform as only enzymes are involved, and more protoplast viability is involved in enzymatic method of isolation of protoplasts. Now protoplast isolation, which enzymes are generally used? As the cell wall is made up of cellulose and hemicellulose, the enzymes which digest these cell wall material, that is cellulase and hemicellulase, are generally used to digest the cell wall. And pectinase, the third enzyme, mainly degrade the middle lamella in between the two cells. So it degrades the cementing material between the adjacent plant cells. So commercial enzymes examples are Onazuka cellulase SS and Onazuka macrosine SS, which is having fungal origin. So these enzymes are generally used in enzymatic isolation. Now based on the methodology used for obtaining the protoplast, the enzymatic method can be performed in two ways, the first way and second way. In first way, we first take the cells, we plasmolyze them, and then we add the combined enzyme solution. That means all these three enzymes together here, and then in one go only we obtain the protoplasts. So this is one step methodology. In second step or second type of method, we first plasmolyze the cells. We first add pectinase. so that the adjacent cells will dissociate and they will form a mixture of cells. And then we add the cellulase and hemicellulase so as the cell wall can be degraded, and finally we get the protoplast. These isolated protoplasts were further cultured to regenerate the plant or to perform the further experiments. So this is the methodology. We start with the mesophyll cells of leaf. We remove the epidermis and then we plasmolyze the cells. Either we go for combined usage of all the enzymes, or we go by one by one use of these enzymes. First we use pectinase and then we use cellulase. But final outcome is the protoplast. Now you have removed the protoplast either by mechanically or enzymatically. What about their viability? Now, how you can detect whether they are viable or non-viable, whether they are living or they have been dead? So, generally the methods are there. The first method is observation of cyclosis or cytoplasmic streaming movement within the cell under microscope. If there is certain movement in a which is called as cyclosis or cytoplasmic streaming, you observe in a cell, that means the protoplast is live or viable. If the cell is requiring oxygen, it is taking the oxygen, that means cell is live. If it is showing any photosynthetic activity, that means your protoplast is viable. Or you can also go for staining methodologies like fluorescent diacetate stain, which is commonly used for staining the protoplast. Protoplast viability and plating density. Before culturing of protoplast, their viability is estimated by staining with fluorescent diacetate, which is also called as FDA. Now, viable protoplast exhibits the green fluorescence under UV light. Once you color or you stain the protoplast with this stain, fluorescent diacetate, they generally exhibit the green fluorescence under UV light. It should be examined within 5 to 15 minutes after FDA treatment. After FDA dissociates. That's why it is very crucial to observe the cells just within 5 to 15 minutes after staining with the FDA. This is how they look. Viable protoplast looks under UV light. All these are live, while these are the dead protoplasts. So this is how we can differentiate between the dead and viable protoplast. Now there are numerous protoplast culturing methodologies are there. Several ways are there, but out of which three methodologies are, or the methods are generally used for culturing the protoplast. One is, the first is hanging drop culture, second is microculture chamber, and third is soft agar matrix method. One by one we'll learn about them. In a hanging drop methodology, what we need, first we need a cavity slide. On a cavity slide, we need a cover slip. On a cover slip, we generally put the small drop of protoplast is kept on or placed on a cover slip with a loop, either using nichrome wire loop, or nowadays you can also go for using micropipette. Then on the cavity side of the slide, you have to put the 4 dots of Vaseline just surrounding your cavity, and then you have to place your slide in an inverted position onto a cover slip, and then again you have to invert the slide so that your cover slip will be on a upper position. So this is how you can culture the protoplast in a hanging drop culture methodology, and you can observe this slide under the microscope for the growth of protoplasts. Then in second methodology, you can also take small flasks, and you can take a you can use a slide or cover slip with protein solution. High vacuum grease can be applied, and you can add the high reservoir of precipitate or media in the chamber. The third methodology is microculture chamber, in which we use a specialized slide which is called as Newbar chamber, having the H shape, where H gutters are H shape is in a gutter form, or it's have a depression, and these are the raised areas on the slide. It has small grid, square grid is there at the both side of H, and you can add your solution in the gutter. The whatever solution containing protoplast will be evenly distributed within this H shape and on into the squares of this Neubauer chamber. And under the microscope, either you can place a cover slip on this entire slide, or you can just culture this slide under the microscope in a laminar flow or in a aseptic conditions, and then you can observe the distribution of protoplast in the grids, small grids. So this methodology is known as microculture chamber methodology of protoplast culturing. The drop method, either you can put small protoplast containing solution drops into the Petri plates, and you can put the Petri plate cover or lid and invert the entire Petri plate, which is known as hanging drop methodology of culturing the protoplast. Second methodology is embedded in agar or agarose, in which you need a Petri plate, you need a agar, okay, soft agar, which is just molten and having the temperature of 38 to 40 degrees Celsius. Then you need a protoplast solution containing the live viable protoplast. Just about before solidification of agar, you need to mix these two together, and you need to pour this into a Petri plate. Once you pour it into the Petri plate, what happens? Agar will solidify, and whatever your protoplast will be there, they will be embedded within the agar. So it will be in between your agar material or agar media. That's why this methodology is known as embedded in agar or agarose type of culturing method of protoplasts. Now in feeder layer technique, what do? You generally have the irradiated protoplasts at the below on the agar. You have to put the filter paper on these irradiated protoplasts, and on filter paper you can culture your target protoplasts. So the irradiated protoplast will be a source of absorbing nutrition for these protoplasts which are growing on the filter paper. So this is the methodology of feeder layer technique of culturing the protoplasts. Now protoplast fusion is also one of the important step in obtaining the somatic hybrids. So there are several methods of fusing protoplast. Protoplast fusion must occur before new wall regenerate. Usually after removing the cell wall from your cell, after few days the new cell wall begins to regenerate within few hours. So you have to fuse your protoplast before regeneration of new cell wall. So that stage you have to detect with the UV microscopy and also the use of calcafluor staining. Mitosis occurs about 2 to 7 days after isolation. Colonies can be seen in 1 or 3 weeks. So protoplast fusion should be done before the formation of new cell wall regeneration. That's the important step. Now in fusion also there are two methodologies. One is the spontaneous methodology of fusion and another is the induced one. In the name implies spontaneous means natural. Generally it occurs naturally, and you see this kind of fusion in intraspecific species and intergeneric species. The plants which are from same species or same genera. You observe this kind of phenomena, that is spontaneous fusion, in these two types of plants. While in induced fusion, generally we have to induce a force, either a chemical force or mechanical force or electrical force, so as to fuse the two different protoplasts together. So based on that, there are three different techniques: chemofusion, mechanical fusion, and electrofusion. So one by one, we will learn about what is spontaneous fusion and what is induced fusion. So first, we will learn about spontaneous fusion. So generally, which kind of protoplast fuse spontaneously? The protoplast from the plants which are intraspecific or intergeneric. They usually fuse spontaneously, and the fusion generally takes place with the help of plasmodesmata or plasmodesmatal junctions. Now, induced fusion, uh, it requires the fusion inducing chemical, mechanical force or electrical force. Normally do not fuse with each other. So it generally we have to carry out the induced fusion in species or in the plant species or genera which are not which do not fuse with each other. So that is they are they generally from wide crosses, or they are not from the same genera or not from the same species. For such kinds of plant protoplasts, we have to use the induced fusion methodology. The spontaneous fusion, the adjacent protoplast in enzyme mixture have tendency to fuse together to form the homokaryons having same type of nucleus, protoplast from the same plant. So homokaryons, intraspecific plants generally form the homokaryons. Interspecific or intergeneric, they generally form the heterokaryons. So karyons in this case is nucleus. If the two cells are same, then after fusion they generally form the homokaryons. If the two cells are from different genera plant or from two different plants, then their obviously their nucleuses will be different. That's why the protoplast fusion product will be called as an heterokaryon. So this is the picture of protoplast. This is a single protoplast, and this is two protoplasts just about to fuse. Okay. Now in induced fusion, freshly isolated protoplast can be induced to undergo fusion with the help of range of fusogen or fusing chemicals or fusion promoting chemicals, which are called as chemical fusogens, such as NaNO3, sodium nitrate, artificial seawater, lysozyme, high pH calcium conditions, or polyethylene glycol, polyvinyl alcohol, or electrofusion technology. So all these fusing agents, fusing forces were have to be added in the protoplast solution so as your protoplast can fuse together. So following treatment have yielded success in producing somatic hybrid plants. The first methodology in that is mechanical fusion, in which you can put the protoplast suspension on a cavity slide or a depression slide, and you have to gently tap on that slide so that the protoplast within that drop will collide with one another and they will generally fuse due to the mechanical force created due to tapping of the slide. Now in the second thing or second methodology, the giant protoplasts of Acetobularia have been fused mechanically by pushing together the two protoplasts. This fusion does not depend upon the presence of fusion inducing agent. So in mechanical fusion, under the microscope, you can push the two different protoplast cells together so that due to mechanical force of pushing, they will fuse together. So this is called as mechanical fusion method of protoplast fusion. In the second methodology, we use chemical agents like sodium nitrate, polyethylene glycol, or calcium ions, or high pH conditions. Generally, this causes the isolated protoplast to adhere to each other. These chemicals bring two different protoplasts together, adjacent to each other, and then due to chemical reaction with the cell membrane, these protoplasts, wherever they attach to one another or adhere to one another, they will make a fusion point, and they causes the massive fusion. Sometimes the higher concentration of these chemicals can cause cytotoxicity, and also they are non-selective and having less fusion frequency. So this is the facts about these are the facts about chemofusion methodology. methodology. Three chemicals are generally being used: polyethylene glycol, sodium nitrate, calcium ions, and polyvinyl alcohol. So in sodium nitrate methodology, it was first demonstrated by Power et al. In 1970. In this methodology, the isolated protoplasts were cleaned by floating in a sucrose osmoticum. That means plasmolysis is used or is carried out using sucrose solution. Then the protoplasts are then transferred into sodium nitrate solution 0.25 molar. Then subsequent centrifugation is carried out, and the addition of sodium nitrate in the protoplast usually causes the protoplasts to fuse together. This procedure results in low frequency of heterokaryon formation, and protoplasts are markedly altered in their uptake capabilities. So being invented in 1970, this was the first methodology, chemical technology or chemically induced uh, protoplast fusion technology. That's why generally it yielded low frequency of heterokaryon formation. In the second methodology, which was uh, invented in 1973 by Keller and Melcher for fusing the two different lines of tobacco protoplasts. In this methodology, what they use as an osmoticum, 0.4 molar mannitol solution along with 0.05 molar calcium chloride solution. The pH was maintained at 10.5, very alkaline pH, and then amino acid added was 0.05 molar glycine along with NaOH buffer at 37 degrees Celsius. So the protoplast was added in these mixture of solution. Then aggregation of protoplast generally takes place at once and fusion occurs within 10 minutes. All these chemicals alters the membrane permeability or the membrane liquidity, and that causes the protoplast to fuse with one another, and you generally observe this taking place within 10 minutes. Many intraspecific and interspecific somatic hybrids have been produced using this procedure. Then the third chemical used in the chemical fusion technology is polyethylene glycol treatment, in which polyethylene glycol solution, that is 0.6 ml, is used, whereas the pellets of protoplast in the test tube is used. So protoplast solution is centrifuged and the pellet of protoplast is taken, in which the 0.6 ml of PEG is added. Generally, this mixture is incubated at room temperature for about 40 minutes, and then occasional rocking of tubes or the twisting or vortexing of tubes is done, and then finally you carry out the centrifugation, and then protoplasts are resuspended in the culture media. So this is the single chemical used in this chemically induced protoplast fusion method, and thereby creating the heterokaryons. So this is the procedure how protoplast fusion takes place in the presence of polyethylene glycol. These are the two different protoplasts. When you add the polyethylene glycol into these protoplast solution, generally they adhere to one another and they start fusing at this point because of high calcium and high pH conditions, and then they fuse with one another forming heterokaryon. The third methodology is electrofusion technology, in which electrical stimulation is used to fuse the two different protoplasts. In this methodology, an electrical field of low strength, that is 10 kilovolt meter, is generally used. It is very easy to control. It has the fusion frequency up to 100% and it gives the reproducibility of results, less cytotoxic, and equipment is sophisticated and expensive. So it's simple technology in which what you do, you need a low voltage electrical current pulses to align the protoplast between two electrodes in this pearl chain manner, and the aligned protoplasts are then pushed with the micromanipulator in a gentle place through narrow gap between the two electrodes. When two protoplasts that are to be fused are appropriately oriented opposite the electrodes, a short pulse of high voltage is released, which induces the protoplast to fuse with one another. So these adjacent two protoplasts will fuse with one another, forming a heterokaryon. So this is the equipment used for carrying out the electrofusion, and generally the technique used is electric current. This is how the formation of protoplast chain or pearl chain formation will take place after application of alternative currents, low voltage current streams. Mechanism of protoplast fusion. This is how they are adhered to two different electrodes, and two adjacent protoplasts will come together forming the heterokaryon, and then you transfer these cell cultures on a petri dish to culture them further. These are the pictures of instruments used for carrying out the electroporation. Now this is how the protoplast fusion takes place. The two different plant cells with their cell walls removed by cellulase pectinase. The cells get together and fuse after exposing them to polyethylene glycol. The single cell is produced often with two nuclei and organelle of the two cells. This is the close-up of protoplast. Green discs are generally chloroplasts. Further, after fusing, these cells were transferred onto petri dish containing media, and they are further grown to form small colonies, which are called as Calli colonies. These Calli colonies turn green in light once they start photosynthesizing on a petri dish. If the conditions are right, small shoots emerge from the green Calli, and these shoots on Calli will develop into new plants, which were actually a hybrid plants. One often gets many shoots from each of the Calli, and then finally you regenerate these cultured hybrid cells onto culture media bottles, converting them to a somatic hybrid plant. The shoots can be excised from the Calli and rooted on the nutrient media in the test tube. This will result in a whole new potato plant. The new potato plant can be grown in a test tube. So this is the methodology of somatic hybridization. So for somatic hybridization technique, first we need to carry out the isolation and purification of protoplast. Then fusion of protoplast of desired species. Then identification and selection of hybrid protoplast. Culturing the hybrid protoplast on a proper nutrient media. And finally regeneration and characterization of hybrid plants. So this is the flow chart of obtaining somatic hybrids using protoplasts. Now, somatic hybridization is nothing but a production of hybrid plants through fusion of two different plant protoplasts, which are wall-less naked cells, is known as somatic hybridization, and such hybrid protoplasts are known as somatic hybrids. So generally it involves 4 steps: isolation of protoplast, fusion of protoplasts of desired species, selection of somatic hybrid cells, and culturing of the hybrid cells and regeneration of hybrid plants from them. So this is the procedure. You require two different protoplasts. You fuse them either with spontaneous mechanical, chemical or electrofusion technique. The outcome is either you will get a hybrid or cybrid. Now hybrid is when the nuclei of two different cells fuse with one another, forming a hybrid nuclei. Then generally the cell which you obtain is hybrid cell. But in cybrid cell what happens? Either of the nuclei, one of the nuclei from either of the cells, parent cells, will get degenerated, keeping only one nuclei viable. Either this nuclei will remain viable or this another nuclei degenerate, forming a cybrid cell. Okay. So the outcome is either you will get hybrid or cybrid after fusion of two different plant protoplasts. In that also you have two different hybrids. One is symmetric hybrid. When normal protoplast of two species are fused, the resulting somatic hybrid plant may retain the somatic chromosome complement of both the fusion parents. That means it will have the 50-50 percent nuclei composition from both of the parent plant. Then this will be called as somatic hybrid. Such somatic hybrids are called as symmetric hybrids. Immediately give rise to new species because it contains the 50-50% nucleus composition from its parent plant. And as it is containing the equal contribution from parent nuclei, it is called as symmetrical hybrid. While in a asymmetric hybrid, the full somatic complement of one parental species will be retained, while all or nearly all other chromosomes of the other parental species are lost during the preceding mitotic divisions. So in this, one of the nuclei will be means it will be vanished. Only one complete nucleus will be kept. Such hybrids are referred as asymmetric hybrids and are produced due to spontaneous chromosome elimination in the certain fusion combinations, generally yielding the cybrids. Asymmetric hybrids are essentially cytoplasmic hybrids or cybrids, except for the introgressed genes of chromosomes. Now, cybrid is a cytoplasmic hybrid. Cybrids are the cells or plants containing nucleus of one species but the cytoplasm from both the parental species. As I already told you that the nucleus, one of the nuclei will degenerate, keeping only one nuclei intact in the fused cell. And in organelles also same happens. One of the organelle will be retained, another organelle will be degenerated. Now this will yield the cybrid plant or cybrid cell, and this will also leads to production of somatic cybrids. The process of protoplast fusion resulting in the development of cybrid is known as cybridization. Now cybrids may be produced by one of the following means: fusion of normal protoplast of one species with eunucleated protoplast, that is cytoplast, or protoplast having inactivated nucleus of the other species. Means while taking the protoplast for fusion, from one protoplast you can remove its nucleus, okay, creating a cytoplast, and one protoplast is intact. Then this eunucleated protoplast, from which you have already removed the nucleus, you can combine it with the another protoplast cell, forming a cybrid. Elimination of nucleus of one species from normal heterokaryon, or gradual elimination of chromosomes from one species from a hybrid cell during the subsequent mitotic division. Naturally, if you fuse two intact protoplasts together, anyhow elimination of nucleus is gonna take place, thereby leading the gradual elimination of one of the chromosomes from one species. So finally yielding a cybrid cell. The objective of cybrid production is to combine the cytoplasmic genes of one species with the nuclear and cytoplasmic genes of the another species. So obtaining cybrid is mainly done is to combine the cytoplasmic genes of one species with another plant species having its chromosome and cytoplasmic genes. Advantage of cybridization is cybrid approach has been used for the transfer of cytoplasmic male sterility trait from Nicotina tabacum to Nicotima sylvestris, Petunia hybrida plant into Petunia axillaris plant, and even in sexually incompatible combination. So this is the trait which is exhibited in cytoplasmic genes. This trait can be transferred from the cells of Nicotina tabacum into Nicotima sylvestris by combining the two different protoplasts, that is protoplast of Nicotina sylvestris and Nicotina tabacum. It is originally present here in the cytoplasm. Once you combine it with the protoplasm of Nicotina sylvestris, this cytoplasmic male sterility trait will be transferred to the heterokaryon or a protoplast fusion fused cell. Same happens with Petunia hybrida also. Applications of somatic hybridization is generally to obtain the novel interspecific and intergeneric crosses between the plants that are difficult to hybridize conventionally, traditionally. For example, we cannot hybridize tomato with potato. So it is traditionally impossible, but using this hybridization technique using protoplast fusion, it is possible. What you need to do, you need to take the tomato protoplast, potato protoplast, fuse them together, obtain a heterokaryon, grow it on a media to obtain a pomato plant, which can give you potato also and tomato also. Then transfer of desirable genes for disease resistance. Some wild plant varieties carries the genes for disease resistance. They are highly disease resistant. They generally don't catch up the diseases. So this trait can be transferred from the wild varieties like Solanum brevidens and Solanum furaja. So one of the variety contains the disease resistance, another does not contain this trait. When you fuse these two different protoplasts, generally the hybrid of resistant plant variety will be developed, that is the potato plant variety which is resistant to potato leaf roll virus, potato virus and Erwinia soft rot. Then cytoplasmic trait transfer is also can be done using this hybridization methodology, where the protoplast of Nicotina tabacum is fused with Nicotina rependa, and the cytoplasmic male sterility present within this rependa species is transferred into the Nicotina tabacum. Then third application is transfer of desirable genes for abiotic stress resistance. Like atrazine resistance has been transferred from wild species of tomato, that is Lycopersicon peruvianum, into cultivated species, that is Lycopersicon esculentum. That means in this fusion event, you fuse the Lycopersicon peruvianum with the Lycopersicon esculentum, thereby transferring the disease resistance characteristic or abiotic resistance characteristics into table variety of tomato. Then transfer of desirable genes for quality characters, like somatic hybrids produced between Brassica napus and Eruca sativa were fertile and had low concentration of erucic acid. So these are the two different Brassica species, Brassica napus and Eruca sativa. When you combine the protoplast of these two different species, the desirable genes for lower eruic acid concentration will be transferred to Brassica napus plant, and thereby yielding a variety which is fertile also and had low concentration of eruic acid also. Then transfer of cytoplasmic male sterility. Male sterile lines were developed by fusing the protoplast of Nicotina tabacum with X-ray irradiated protoplast of Nicotina africana. Then the sixth advantage is overcoming the sub-incompatible barriers, like hybrids between two sexually compatible species possess some desirable features that may take them commercially useful. Like example is somatic hybrids between Datura inoxia and Datura discolor. Datura inoxia and Datura stramonium shows the heterosis for alkaloid content, that is 20 to 25% higher alkaloid content than their respective parent plant. That means individually these species have lower alkaloid content, but when these two plant species protoplasts were fused together, there is increase in alkaloid percentage is almost by 20 to 25%, which is called as heterosis. That means your hybrid vigor is more vigorous than the individual parent plants. Then it is also used for obtaining the autotetraploids. That means the plants having the 4n number of chromosome. Then protoplast of sexually sterile plants, haploid, triploid or aneuploid, can be fused to produce the fertile diploids or polyploids. That means you can fuse the haploid N that with diploid to obtain the triploid, or you can fuse the diploid to obtain a tetraploid, or you can fuse the haploid, that means N plus N, to obtain the diploid, fertile diploids. Then hybridization becomes possible between the plants that are still in the juvenile phase, and also for the production of unique nuclear cytoplasmic combinations. So all these are the applications for protoplast fusion or somatic hybrids. Achievements in the agriculture are using this technique of somatic hybridization. Various somatic hybrids were developed in croplands belonging to major four families, that is Brassicaceae, Fabaceae, Poaceae and Solanaceae. Interspecific hybrids of Nicotiana, brinjal, potato, tomato, Brassica medicago, soybean, sugarcane, datura, petunia and sorghum have been also developed. Intergeneric hybrids, that is the hybrids from two different genera, that is tomato potato, tomato tobacco, Festuca lolium, sugarcane bajra, wheat bajra and Brassica and Iruka have been also developed. Intertribal hybrids like which are from different family like Brassica and Arabidopsis, Brassica and Lesquerella fendrelli have been also developed using somatic hybridization approach. Now constraint or limitations, what are the disadvantages of this technique? The technique of protoplast isolation, culture, fusion and regeneration are not available for many important crop species like many cereals and pulses. Main crops for major crops, staple crops like cereal and pulses, this technique is not available. Also, the lack of efficient method for the selection of fused products is also not available in the laboratory. In many cases, chromosome elimination occurs from somatic hybrids, leading to the formation of asymmetric hybrids or cybrids. Such hybrids may be useful, but there is no control on the chromosome elimination. Many somatic hybrids show genetic instability, which may be an inherent feature of the somatic species combination. And many somatic hybrids either do not regenerate, often sterile, misformed, unstable. Such hybrids are useless for crop improvement program. So these are the constraints or limitations of somatic hybridization technique. Finally, this is the chart of how we can proceed with obtaining the somatic hybrid plants. First, we isolate the protoplast either by mechanical or enzymatic procedure. Then second step is fusion of protoplast, either by chemofusion, mechanical fusion or electrofusion methodology. Once the protoplasts are fused, we have to select the fused protoplast or hybrid protoplast. Then these hybrid protoplasts were cultured on the nutrient media and finally they were converted into hybrid plants.